Hey, welcome to the Tim. This is not the Tim and Gugabe podcast. This is a new feature, and it's called Technical Talk with Technical Tim. And this is going to feature Grant Dawson. And I know the people who follow me are going to be excited for this because I've been high on Grant Dawson's fighting style for a while. And Grant, like, I'm not just saying that because you're here. Like, it's just like how it's been, and But how you doing, man? This is so cool. It's so cool. I'm so happy you did this, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show, dog. I love talking MMA. I love talking technique. So I'm always down for this kind of stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm going to start with some overarching questions, and then I'm going to kind of start with, and then kind of go through some of your fights. And, for those of you, this is a new segment, and I'm really just going to be talking more because, Grant, I feel like so many MMA interviews are similar. It's like, how's your training camp going? It's the best I've ever felt, and
Right.
It may not be the best you ever felt. You might actually be injured, So I just feel like they're similar, and I think I always get more interested when people talk about strategy and stuff
Right.
like that. And I would never want you to talk about strategy for like a future opponent, but maybe kind of just how fights have gone in the past and your overall outlook on the fight game. So I'll start with some overarching questions. And if you have any questions as you go or whatever, just let me know, man. We'll just kind of see how this goes. But so I'm going to ask you now, do you have a matchup now or no? Are you still kind of working on one?
So we're working on one. Basically, what they told me was end of March, early April was
Cool.
kind of the date. And they said that the way the top 15 is right now, it's probably going to be another opponent outside the top 15, which
Yeah.
I'm cool with. I get paid the same, no matter who I fight.
Agreed.
And, just more time for me to get better and create wealth when I'm ready to fight those big guys. So I don't know who it is. Nothing has been confirmed or anything like that, but we have been asking for Matt Favola, Diego Fajeda, names like that. If they're outside the top 15, but again, nothing confirmed, nothing even, that's just what I'm asking for.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, just side topic there. I feel like sometimes people want ranked opponents, like they want to jump on it. And I think Sean O'Malley showed kind of a different route, how he kind of gradually got steps up in competition until he was kind of ready. So some people can maybe learn from that. And it kind of sounds like you're kind of okay with growing as a fighter and don't need a top 5 guy right away. So
yeah, I think not on purpose, but I think Islam Makhachev did that by accident, where he he built himself up, and it was more so because nobody wanted to fight him. But he built himself up, until fighting the good guys when he got I can't talk today, the right amount of money and the right amount of matchups, all the way up to a title shot. So if I can do that, man, I'm down for that. I'm 7-0-1 in the UFC. So I'm going to have to fight somebody super tough eventually. Those fights will come. So as many fights as I can get where it's not these killers where I might be coming home with half a paycheck, I'm down for that.
Totally, man. I totally agree with that. And so I'm going to get in and I'm going to kind of overarching questions just about, let's get into the technique. And I'm going to talk about your overall fighting style. And the reason I kind of wanted you on here is because I've been wrestling for a long time. So I can kind of understand your style a lot better than, some other guys. And so, you're a high volume wrestler. You go for takedown and correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like you're consciously aware, you put a pace on someone and you keep going and you bring it. You've developed other aspects of your game, like your jiu-jitsu and your striking, but you shoot a lot of takedowns. And not only that, it's the chaining of your takedowns and the diversity in your takedowns. Cause I've seen you shoot 15 different type of takedowns, whether it's a double and then a single, and you have 4 or 5 different finishes. Is this a style and we'll talk about your early wrestling days. Is this a style you consciously developed, or did it kind of just happen and you kind of noticed it worked in the gym? How did this happen? And is it the game plan to do that every fight?
Yeah, man. I mean, the game plan for me pretty much always stays the same. When I'm breaking down an opponent, the 2 biggest things that I look at is what stance are they standing in, which leg is forward, and which arm do they guillotine with. Those are if you tell me those 2 things, I can pretty much figure out, I've got you pegged, if I know which leg to shoot on and I know which arm you guillotine with, I feel pretty confident going into a fight.
Yeah.
I've noticed myself that I have really good shots, like shots that I do consistently in the gym that I've got good setups for and good takedowns for. And I've noticed that a lot of the times I don't really hit them in fights, which is kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
Another guy that is kind of like this, and I'm not comparing myself to Khabib in any way, but like I noticed, because I watch a lot of film on Khabib. I watch a lot of film on everybody, but I watch a lot of film on Khabib, and I've noticed like in all of his fights, he shoots a lot of different shots. You know, like he's never getting people down with the same thing twice. It's always like, okay, that didn't work, I'm going to move on to this. Okay, that didn't work, I'm going to move on to this. And he just is so relentless with it. Eventually, like I feel like he's got 10 takedowns and he's just going to run you one. Okay, nope, two. Okay, nope, three. Oh, three worked. So I'm just going to keep going back to three. And then the next opponent, it's like, oh, six worked. I'm just going to keep going back to six. And so that's kind of what I like to do. Like I've got very specific entries that I like, and then finishes are really all feel for me.
For sure. Yeah. And one fight that, so I'm a little older than you, and I've been like, so one of the first times I like recognized this is because like some like MMA wrestling still developing. Like there's some guys who I feel like they can defend like a double leg, but then the more you try different takedowns, all of a sudden something will work, right? And the first time I ever noticed, and if you're ever just bored, want to watch this fight, Phil Davis versus Little Nogueira, and it was like 2011. Phil Davis shot like 8 double legs and got him all stuffed. And so I think he like lost the first round or was really close. Then he switched to a single leg in the second round. And then he went 3 for 4 on takedowns the rest of the fight, all single legs. So it was almost like, yes, like Little Nog had the wrestling to stop that double leg. But then whenever you kind of went to different things, it kind of overwhelmed him. And then whenever you're talking about you and Khabib and other like people who mix in that takedown variety, it's not only the pace that breaks them, but like the overwhelming confusion of the takedowns because there's so many more things to defend. And is that kind of something you've noticed?
Yeah, man. I've noticed like too, like for me, I've got okay, for example, like when I go with Thiago Moises, I don't shoot a lot of double legs on Thiago Moises because his hips are so strong. He's always in good position. And anytime that I separate my hands and get them away from my body, I just don't feel strong with him. So with Thiago, I shoot a lot more single legs, head out. Yeah, he's fantastic everywhere. I'm just saying I've gone so many rounds with him,
So
I shoot a lot more like guys with strong, super strong hips. I like to shoot a lot more single legs on because if they push that hip into me, it makes it easier for me to move them and then chain to something else. I've been training a lot with Yaroslav lately, the Bellator 170-pound champ. And single legs don't work on him at all because he's so flexible. Obviously, he's very strong and very, very technical, but like I get his leg up over my head and he's just, looks like he could drink a soda while his legs in the air. He's so flexible. So double legs work a lot better with him because, and that's not to say I'm taking him down at will or anything like that. I've just noticed like double legs are a little bit easier. Because he's so flexible in his legs. Like I can't move him. So that's something that I've kind of picked up too, where it was like, I would wrestle kids in high school and it would be like, okay, this dude can squat a bus. So a double leg probably isn't going to work on him. Let's move him with a single. Okay, this kid is super lanky and flexible. Probably not going to be able to get his leg up. It's going to be, doubles for me.
For sure. Yeah. I just feel like because I was just, and I'll get into this in a sec. But well, actually, I'll just ask now. I was shocked whenever I think in an interview you said you only took 6th in high school, right? Is that right? And you, because like when I watch you, like I have a subscription to Flow Wrestling. I live and breathe wrestling, and I was shocked. Like I assumed you were like a D1 qualifier, a D1 All-American, but you also didn't wrestle in college, right? So like you didn't go that route, and so. How long have you been wrestling? Because I'm really surprised you didn't do better than that. Like, and can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my number one regret in life is not treating wrestling the way that I treat MMA. I live, sleep, breathe, eat MMA. I wish I had done that for wrestling. My first 2 years of wrestling, I was horrible. So I didn't start until 8th grade. 8th grade was my first
Well, that makes a
year,
ton of sense. Okay. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
first year ever stepping on a wrestling mat, like never done it before, tried it out, and I didn't like it. I did not like it. My dad had this rule where he said, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it next year, but you have to finish the year.
100%.
The best gifts my dad ever gave me.
Yep.
And I would forget how much I didn't like it. Wrestling season would come across and I'd be like, well, I don't like basketball. Basketball is not fun for me at all. I don't like team sports because I would put a lot of time into football and I never got to play. I got to play like 2 or 3 plays in football, and rightfully so. I was bad at football, but still I didn't like it. So I was like, well, if I'm not going to do anything, I might as well do wrestling. And then I would start wrestling. I hated it. My dad would make me finish it and so on. And then my senior year, I finally really liked wrestling and I started taking it seriously.
Right.
The crazy thing is I went to state my sophomore year. So
you're a natural wrestler then, because to make it 3 years after you, or 2 years after you start, so it makes sense that because now you have all the years under your belt. Because if you had started when you were younger, you would have went D1 for sure, because you would have had time to develop. So, but go on. Yeah,
I agree with you. Wrestling just makes sense to me. I don't know what it is, but when I'm really good at scrambling. I'm really, really good at scrambling. Yep. And it's because I think I turn you don't know how to scramble, right? You turn off your brain and you feel. I'm really good at feeling things, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I went to state my sophomore year. I should have gone to state my junior year, but I didn't work very hard and I lost to a kid that I beat before. I wrestled the number 1 dude at districts. I lost by a point. And I was wrestling a kid that I'd already beat. So I was like, cool, I'll beat this kid. I'll go to state. He ends up whooping my ass. And I mean, whooping my ass. Yeah. And he had like a 10-10 record. So he went to state and I didn't. And that kind of really lit a fire under me. And then my senior year, I started taking it real serious.
Yeah.
But as you know, when, it takes more than a year to take something serious. You're not going to win state taking something, serious one year. And I got into the finals. So if I win, I go in for first and second. If I lose, I go down. If I lose again, I go down to 6th. Right.
Yeah.
And the dude threw me on my back, got up by 5 points, 2 for the takedown, 3 for back points. And I ended up losing by 1 point.
So you came back and probably got some takedowns and maybe some escapes for him. Did you lose like 7-6 or something?
No, it was, so he threw me to my back. He had 5 points.
Yep.
I got a reversal, rode him the whole round.
5-2.
Yep. And then I got a takedown, rode him the whole round. And then we started neutral. I couldn't get him down and he beat me. So fair and square, whatever. That lit a fire under my ass. And I think that really drove me into MMA to take it 100%. Look at what this is actually a fun little story. Our coach had us write. I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
I talk a lot too. You're good, man. This is good. Yeah.
Our coach had us write down our goals at the beginning of senior year. And I hit every single goal I had. And I remember looking at it and just being like, I wish I had set these goals so much higher. I wanted to place at state. I wanted to have a winning record. And I wanted to, I wanted to place at every meet, have a winning record, and place at state. And I got all 3 of those. And I was like, man, I could have done so much better, if I had just set my goals a little bit higher. So I did that in MMA. It's like, dude, I want to be a world champion. Between me and you, I want to be a double world champion. And I've got dreams of being the first 3-division world champion. I'm setting my goals as high as I can, and I'm going to achieve all of them, man.
For sure, man. Yeah. And just to let people know, I've been coaching wrestling forever. And it just qualifying for state in high school and after 2 years in a tough state, like Nebraska, right? Tough wrestling state. Yeah. So that means you're a natural wrestler. Because whenever I usually get kids who come in 7th and 8th grade, they usually don't do anything in high school. It's just a little too late. And Missouri's a good wrestling state too. So it's just tough, but, so that just means if you would have started younger, you would have had so much more experience and you probably would have, done really well. So that makes sense why, because I sense D1 level wrestling when I watch you, and so it makes sense. You just started kind of late in middle school. So, all right. I had to ask about that because I was just I was like, this kid is just so much better than that. I was shocked, you know.
I will say, I will say real quick, like the not starting early definitely played a factor, but not working my butt off when I did start was the bigger part.
Agreed. Yeah.
The reason I'm so good at MMA is because I live, sleep, breathe, and eat MMA. I'm always at the gym. I'm really bad at everything else. I'm really bad at bowling. I'm really bad at hunting. I'm really bad. I have no other hobbies. None.
Who cares?
I like watching cartoons and Star Wars, and I train. That's it. So even like I would say to somebody, even if, you know, you weren't the best athlete or all that, hard work will beat most of those athletes if they don't work hard.
For sure. And speaking of that, like, and we were talking a little bit before, and I already had this question out there. I'm assuming you watch a lot of tape. I mean, because you live, breathe, and sleep it. And I mean, I'm not a fighter. I don't want to act like an expert on this, but it just seems crazy for people who wouldn't watch tape because it's just information. It can only help you. And so, do you watch a ton of tape on your opponents? And like, how do you go about that?
I watch tape every single day, and it's not like a, oh, it's 6:30. I gotta watch. I just enjoy watching it. Like, it's so much fun for me to watch film.
Yeah.
There's this thing. I'm gonna totally butcher this, but it's kind of it's I believe it. And they were saying that the brain doesn't know the difference between a mental rep, a visual rep, and a physical rep. Your body knows the difference, but your brain doesn't. So when you like think about the move, your brain thinks you have another rep doing it. When you see the move being done, your brain thinks you have another rep doing it. And when you actually do the move, then your body and your brain have a rep doing it. So obviously there is no substitute for being in the gym, none. But I tell these young guys all the time, if you want to get better at MMA the fastest, other than when you're in the gym, watch film. And for me, it's like watch film. If you're a younger guy, watch film that relates to you. So for example, I had a really good friend of mine who started MMA, and I said, hey man, you watching any film? He's like, I watch a lot of Max Holloway. And I was like, okay. And Max is tall, lanky striker. My friend was a short, stocky southpaw wrestler. Yeah. And I was like, quit watching Max Holloway. Like, he's great, but he has nothing to do with your style. Watch RDA, watch Hector Lombard, watch Dustin Poirier, watch these guys, Drew Dober, watch these guys.
That all
fit your body type, you know, fit your body type, how you want to fight. And I think you'll learn so much. You know, I can't stress enough. Watch film.
For sure, man. I totally agree. And one other thing I'm going to ask you, because I'm known for this, like in some of the breakdowns I give before and to predict how fights are going to go. And I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm just wondering. I've never talked to a fighter like this before, so I just want to know: do you pay attention to numbers at all? Like how many takedowns you shoot, or I mean, I'm sure you kind of notice the frequency when you're watching film. But do you look at stuff like that? Like, do you look at an opponent and you're like, oh, he's thrown 75 strikes to this fight, 75 strikes to that fight. Like, he shoots 2 takedowns to maybe know what kind of pace they're going to set, or they focus on leg strikes. Like, do you look at that, or you just kind of look at film?
I would say a little bit. Like, for example, I think there's things that you can tell by fighters by like their stuff. Okay, so for example, I average about 2 takedowns a fight per fight. So what that would mean to me is once I get the takedown, I have a lot of control. I keep you down.
3.8 now, just so you know.
Nice. So I get the takedown. I keep a lot of control, and it means that a lot of the times I can finish. Somebody like Merab Dashwali, he gets 21 takedowns.
That's one of my questions. Go on.
Per fight. So that means to me is he can take anybody down whenever he wants, but he has trouble keeping people down. And so like if you've got a good cardio guy, that's why I think that Piotr Jan will do really well against him. Is Piotr's going to give up his back, Piotr's going to get up, fight the hands, turn around, get right back in his face, and start throwing bombs. Those takedowns add up if you're not fighting a cardio machine. Those takedowns add up if you're not fighting a power puncher who's gonna fit one in eventually. Now, if Dashwali doesn't get finished, I could see him losing the fight. But little stats like that kind of, for me at least, I'm not looking at, oh, there's 58 jabs this round. Oh, but I do like to notice, like, okay, he's landing this jab a lot. What is he doing before the jab? Like,
For
why
sure.
is this jab landing so much? And a lot of times it's, okay, he's faking with this side and then landing the jab, or he's faking to the outside and then landing the jab, or he fakes to the inside, goes outside, and then comes back inside to the jab.
Yeah. Yeah, like no, because whenever I like break you down, I always talk about it. I'm like, you know, he lands 3.8 takedowns per 15, and you land takedowns at 34%. So you're not landing all of them, but you're attempting over 10 takedowns per 15 minutes, and you do get a lot of control time. So that means when you're standing, you attempt about a takedown every minute. When you're, you know, so you really put a pace on people. And I was going to ask you about that. So we're kind of jumping ahead, but I had you and Rob's style compared. And I was going to talk about that, but I'm going to stick to my script and we'll get to that. But I was going to ask you one thing. Do you believe in cage breakups or stand-ups from the bottom? Like, do you? Me neither. Okay. Yeah. Is it your philosophy that like you should be able to get up? Like it's on the bottom, man?
I mean, if the only way you would be able to convince me that that's okay is if we didn't start every round on the feet.
100%. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If you can't get away from me, you're going to be able to start on your feet again anyway.
Yeah.
If you can't get away from me like that, and this is the thing that upsets me the most about it is, people say like, okay, well, he's just holding you. If somebody is just holding you, that means you should be able to, like, they're not trying to hit you, they're not trying to hurt you. You should be able to create a scramble out of that, right? Yeah. I understand it's so much easier said than done, but like that is a part of fighting. Can you imagine being in a street fight? Like, let's say me and my girl are out for a walk and some guy comes up and smacks her upside the head, and I take him down and I'm beating him up. And then some other dude comes in and goes, hey, whoa, 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 whoa.
I'm like, Grant, stand up, man.
Yeah, stand back up. That's not enough action. And then it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm trying to hurt this man. Like I'm waiting for the police to get here. It's just, and for me too, like, if you have like a world championship fight, let's say I'm fighting Islam Makhachev. I cannot get away from him. He's taking me down. I can't get away from him. They stand us up and then I land a flying knee on his face. Am I really the better fighter? Or did I just get lucky and somebody else won the fight for me almost?
Right. And another good argument that I always make for that is like, hey, if you were standing, sometimes there's boring fights on the feet, you know, like sometimes, and people stall on the feet. Would you be like, all right, now you guys go into each other's guard?
100%.
And it sounds stupid, but what if fighting, when UFC started, you started on the mat? It's not like impossible that like that could have been the rule. And so you just got to think about it that way. It would be so dumb to do that as well. So like, it's just like favoring one art. And I do think there's some bias in like us being grapplers, but I think it's also realistic. It's just kind of dumb how you can just be like, oh, nope, like come back up, because you wouldn't do that in the reverse way.
Right. Because it's funny because it's like you're in a winning position. You are dominating the fight. You are winning in the judges' eyesights, but the fans don't like it. Let's stand back up. Whereas you're standing, you have a Yoel Romero versus Islam. I'm sorry, I almost said Islam. Israel.
Nothing's happening.
Fight. Nothing's happening. Then what do you do? Because neither person is doing anything. At least if it's boring on the ground, at least I'm doing something. At least the top guy is actively winning the fight. Yet there's no like punishment for standing and stuff like that. Also, too, so much of MMA rule set was taken from boxing. What if it had been taken from wrestling? As you know, in wrestling, they flip a coin, top, bottom, neutral, or defer. What if we had done that in MMA? What if first round we start on the feet, second round flip a coin? Now it's position. Like, do you want to start in the guard? Do you want to start on your back, like let's say a Ryan Hall or something like that? And then, or do you want to start striking, or do you want to defer? Like, it's just, and the thing that doesn't make sense to me, like I get comments all the time where it's like, oh, you're a boring wrestler, blah, 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 which I've got 19 wins and only 2 decisions in my entire career. So it's like, dude, screw you guys. Mm-hmm. But like, the thing that doesn't make sense to me too, is it's like, if you don't like that aspect, why are you watching MMA? One FC does Muay Thai fights in little gloves, and it's exciting. It is very exciting. Go watch that, man. Like, this is a part of the game.
For sure. And I totally agree. And like, I'm not even saying it to be like condescending towards others. It's just, it's total. It just doesn't make sense to me. But there's going to be people who disagree, and there's going to be people who agree with that. But I just feel like it's just kind of weird. And so, yeah. But all right. So we talked a little bit about like your wrestling career. I think we got into that. And like one thing I want to ask. So just so people, because like we have people who are watching who know nothing about wrestling. So broadly, there's 3 different styles. Folk style, which is American wrestling, which I'll ask you, but I think it's the best style out of the 3 that I'm about to mention for MMA for a few reasons. So folk style is you can shoot at the legs on the feet, you can go upper body, and then there's an emphasis on controlling and turning people on the mat. And freestyle is there's not as much mat time. It's kind of like folk style on the feet, and then a little different, but then on the mat, there's a little bit of emphasis on turning and exposure, but you're not looking to control people. Where in college folk style, there's an incentive, an extra point if you get so much riding time. And then Greco, which we can talk about Mark Madsen in a bit, that's upper body focused, where broadly I'm a referee too, so I'm like being all like weird about it, but broadly it means you can't go below the waist. You can't shoot for double legs and whatnot. So do you think folk style is the best out of those 3? Because there have been other people who used to talk about Greco because there's a lot of clinching in MMA. Like, what do you think? What do you think overall?
My mindset of it is I compare, if we're not including MMA, I compare folk style, Greco, and freestyle to basically the big 3 of MMA. You got boxing, you got jiu-jitsu, and you got Muay Thai, right?
Yeah.
I would say that Greco is the most similar to boxing because it's a very, very difficult sport. But if you're good at it, you're really only good at one single aspect of fighting.
Yeah.
If you do Muay Thai, I would say that's more like freestyle. Muay Thai, you got knees, elbows, clinch work. That's huge. Clinch work is huge. Power, good cardio, all of this stuff. So it's very good for that going into MMA. But the best is probably jiu-jitsu because you're learning how to control people. You're learning how to take people down. You're getting a little bit of wrestling. You're getting a little bit of judo. You're getting a little bit of, throws, submission, defense, all of this stuff. Statistically, jiu-jitsu guys and wrestlers do better going into MMA than the strikers.
For sure.
Going to that question, I think you get a little bit of everything when you do folk style. And the biggest thing that you can take away from is control time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good you are at getting takedowns if you can't hold somebody down. We talked about Merab earlier. He gets like 22 takedowns a fight, and I'm not exaggerating. I think he's gotten that many in a fight once.
Yeah.
Or maybe 21.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, like you got to have some control time. You got to have some control on the ground.
Yeah.
And having that control sets up your jiu-jitsu so much better. So I believe if you want to be an MMA fighter, folk style, scholastic style is the way to go 100%.
Did you wrestle free? Because you started late, so you may have not. Did you ever wrestle freestyle or Greco?
I've never had any type of wrestling match other than a scholastic or folk style.
Once you said 8th grade, I figured you didn't, because usually you kind of start a little younger if you have a ton of experience. But,
yeah.
Okay.
The nice thing, like if you're an American Greco guy, I feel like you're going to be a lot better transitioning into MMA because usually the American Greco guys do a lot of freestyle and a lot of folk style growing up. So they at least have an understanding. In different countries like Mark Madsen, and obviously I don't know Mark Madsen's life. I'm just assuming he probably grew up just doing Greco, only doing Greco. Like because he wanted to do that in the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah. So And I was going to talk about that fight, and we can talk about like how his mat wrestling would maybe be the weakness, and we can talk about that soon. And we've been talking forever, but I'll go.
Let's keep going. I like this. Let's keep going.
All right, cool. And then what are some of the differences in wrestling to MMA wrestling? And I'll throw 3 out there and agree or disagree. Like you know way more about this than me, and then maybe throw in. I think these are the 3 that I think. Clasping hands is allowed, which is. And people don't talk about that enough. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And Merab clasps his hands a lot because he doesn't put hooks in, So that's one. The cage, obviously. And then the time. Wrestling matches are usually 6 to 7 minutes, where this is 15 to 25. So conditioning is key. Do you agree with all three of those? And is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with those. One thing that I will tell you, I think the reason why guys that are in folk style do so much better in MMA is because in folk style, you can't clasp your hands. I have another good analogy that I'll tell you in a second, but
Yeah.
when you have to learn how to hold somebody down and you're not allowed to connect your hands, clasp your hands.
Yes.
When you are allowed to do that, it becomes so much easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Another example that I use for this is I tell like new guys, if you want to be good at MMA and you're training in the gi, that's great, but you have to know how to train in the gi to better at MMA. So for example, if I'm on my back and you can grab my clothes and I can get away from you, it is going to be so much easier for me to get away from you when you can't grab my clothes.
Right.
So anytime that I was in the gi, anytime I was on my back, I said, I don't want to be good off my back. I don't want to be good in the gi. I want to be good at MMA.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get away. If I can get away from you when you can literally grab my shirt, when you can't do that, it's going to be so much easier. Same with submission defense. Okay, I get the takedown. If you can't choke me when you can choke me with my shirt, it's going to be so much easier to not get choked when you don't have that. So I think just knowing what you want to do in the future and knowing how to apply what you're doing to be good at that.
For sure.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, that MMA wrestling is so much different than wrestling. And I think all the things you said were 100% correct. I think the one big thing that you're missing is you have to worry about so much more.
Yeah.
How many times?
Knees. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen a wrestler knock out a really good striker because the striker was worried about the takedown?
100%.
Fakes the shot, brings the overhand, knocks him out.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. And just so people know, because we both know like wrestling, but clasping hands basically means locking your hands around somebody when part of their body's down, either their elbow, their knee, their hands, when they're basically down and you're in a top control position in folk style wrestling. You're not allowed to clasp your hands. You have to use different tactics to keep them down. And in freestyle, you can go to gut wrenches and whatnot. And Greco as well. So, and that's a good point. Like I wasn't even thinking about freestyle and Greco because they don't control people on the mat as much, but you're allowed to clasp your hands in that, but in folk style, you can't. And that's a great point because you're forced to learn to keep people down in other ways. So when you also can clasp your hands in MMA now, like you're going to be able to control people very well. So that's a great point. I didn't think about that. This is awesome. Thank you so much for that comment. But, all right, and I'm going to get into some of your fights now and then a couple other things, and then we'll be done. And thank you so much. But one thing I noticed about you, and I think in your corner when you talk to them in the Mike Trezano fights, I'm starting a little early, you seem to not care if your takedowns don't land because you're kind of putting money in the bank with tiring them out and maybe finding out what takedowns work and don't work. And I remember in that Mike Trezano fight, at first you kind of struggled getting some takedowns, but eventually you did. So do you not get discouraged when people kind of like you don't care or get discouraged if people defend your takedowns because you know, hey, maybe eventually I can get them. Is that kind of in your mind?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's discouragement or encouragement or anything like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you could say, hey, this first takedown is going to work easy, I would love that. That would be great.
I mean, obviously,
in the first 10 seconds and win. But one thing, especially training at American Top Team, one thing that I'm learning is, okay, you can stop the first 3, but can you stop the next 30? It's all about and one thing that I've noticed too is when I shoot a lot, it takes you out of your rhythm, right? You don't get, okay, you start getting good rhythm striking. You start getting a good rhythm. Oh, now you got to defend the takedown. Oh, now you got to defend it. Oh, now we're striking again.
And it can open up strikes for you. Yeah.
Exactly. I think in the Trezano fight too, I started touching him up a lot too.
You did.
Because oh, shoot, here comes a takedown. Nope, it was an overhand. Or, oh, here comes a knee, And so once you start getting him so confused, it's like, man, what is he doing? Is a punch coming? Is a knee coming? And then boom, there's a takedown.
For sure. Yeah. So because you mix up, whenever you land takedowns, man, it does totally open up that striking for sure. And that's a great point. And then another thing, and it's funny you brought up Merab. This was in my question. So you and Merab are both high volume takedown artists. but he lands more 6.54 and you land 3.8, but it's also because you have controlled guys down easier. And also, Grant, you get, and you might not know this, you get 1.5 advances of position. So like a pass per takedown you land. So that means you're also advancing position, just so you know. And so you're also advancing position and going for submissions. And one of the things I've noticed about your style is when you get the back, you mix in your jiu-jitsu and you'll put in body triangles, which can literally not only end a fight with a rear naked choke, they can end a round and give you a dominant round when you start punching people. Merab tends to get a clasped hands look, and he doesn't like to put hooks in. And I'm guessing a lot, because a lot of wrestlers, even Khabib doesn't always like to put hooks in. It's because they want their feet planted generally. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just assuming. It's probably because they want their feet planted so they can not get reversed and they can re-go to a takedown. So because they're a little uncomfortable of getting reversed on the mat. Where you seem very comfortable to like put the hooks in or put your body triangle in. Can you talk a little bit about that? Have you always been comfortable with that?
Yeah. So, okay. So it's funny you mentioned this. I was actually just thinking about this the other day, and I was talking with my coach, Mike Brown, about this.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 big factors when it comes to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the number one factor, in my opinion, is body type. Merab is 4'3", so he's probably not going to have a great body triangle because he's just not got the length of his legs
and the leverage
to be able to to lock it up. And that's just my opinion. If you look at Khabib, so I've studied Khabib and I've studied Islam probably more than any human being should. And Khabib throws hooks in. He likes to throw hooks in. But the funny thing is, when Khabib throws hooks in and his back gets exposed, he immediately takes a hook out and takes top position again. Whereas Islam, who's a little bit taller and he's got a little bit longer reach with his legs, he likes the body triangle. He likes to flatten you out. He likes to get go for arm bars, rear naked chokes, and all of this kind of stuff. So I think that's the number one thing, in my opinion.
For sure. That makes sense.
The number 2 thing would be, I think that like wrestlers don't like being on their back. If you look at a guy like Gregor Gillespie, Gregor likes to throw in hooks and flatten you out and throw punches from the top. But if you roll and expose the back, he kind of throws that out and he stays back on top. Gregor's pretty short, but he's got flexible legs, at least from what I've seen. I don't know him personally, but he seems like he could throw in a body triangle if he wanted to. He just doesn't seem like he wants to because he's not comfortable with his back there. And then I think that another thing is too, this more goes towards Merab, is I feel like there's not a big submission threat there.
There's not.
And when when cardio is over finishes, you kind of want to put yourself in a position where you constantly work them. Another person, great example of this was Colby Covington. Covington has the leg length to throw in body triangles and be good at jiu-jitsu.
He
doesn't want to do that. He wants you to keep working. It's almost like he lets you up on purpose so that he can take you back down because he knows he's not going to get tired. Colby Covington could fight 25 rounds in a row with the best guys in the world and not get tired. Is he going to win every round? Probably not. But he's not going to get tired. So his style is based around take him down, make him work, make him work, make him work. Okay, he's back to his feet. Take him down, make him work, make him work, make him work.
Yeah, they're a good comparison. And like they do a lot of the same stuff where like they'll have you against the cage, they'll have your back, they'll take their hooks out. And when you turn into them, double leg. Like they're right back on it. They're right back for another takedown. And then other guys will like to hop on the back, but it can be a little dangerous. And like you said, the leg length could be a factor, or they're just their style, their conditioning. So good stuff, man. Now we've been talking about grappling so much. One thing I want to talk to you about, the first time I really noticed like your striking was the Trezano fight. And it was a lot because you're mixing in the grappling and kind of overwhelmed him. And you started touching him up. One of the fights was Nad Narimani, where you mixed in your calf kicks. And you might have thrown him in other fights, but this is like the fight where I know, like you dropped him, I think, with calf kicks, and you landed some big ones. When did you start doing calf kicks? Like was that a thing in the gym? Because you probably can't train those all the time on a live body because it can hurt someone. But like, when did that become a part of your game? And do you agree it's a part of your game?
100%.
Yeah.
I think my two best striking weapons are my jab and my calf kick.
Yeah.
I think the coach that I was training with at the time of the Nad Narimani fight, he would get into like phases where it's like we're gonna box real heavy, for a month. Okay, we're gonna wrestle real heavy for a month. We're gonna calf kick real heavy for a month, and he really got into calf kicks. He fought
Warley Alves.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
remember. I know who you're talking about too. So yeah.
That's impressive, man. That's the fight I was thinking of. He fought Warley Alves, and the calf kick set up that knee that he does so well. I'm actually really good at that knee too, even though I haven't landed it yet. He set up those calf kicks. Boom, boom, touch the calf kick, bring the knee. And for me, I remember it. I kicked Nad's calf because he was real heavy on his lead leg. Right. That's my number one sign. Somebody's real heavy on their lead leg. I'm jabbing and I'm trying to calf kick as hard as I can. I think that's why it works so well against Madsen, is because he's really heavy on his lead leg. Because he's not afraid of getting taken down because of his wrestling.
Yeah.
Anyway, I landed the first calf kick on Nad, and I landed the first two actually, and then I threw a really hard calf kick and he checked it. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, I hope my foot doesn't break. And I hit him and I didn't feel a thing. So I was like, okay, I'm not feeling it. I'm just going to keep kicking. I'm just going to keep kicking.
And you did, yeah.
And it was kick. And one thing that I'm learning being at ATT, when you're so heavy on your lead leg, it's almost impossible to lift that leg up and start checking. So I think it was one of those things too, where it was just, he was so afraid of the takedown because I'd rode him for 2 rounds.
You did the first 2,
He was very tired. And so it was just like, okay, I can touch him with the jab to stay out of range, and I can hammer that calf kick. Touch him with the jab, hammer with the calf kick. Anytime he would come forward, I would shoot a takedown or I would bring a knee.
Yeah. No, that's all. And that makes, because I don't think about stuff like that because I've never struck or anything, but like that makes sense. If someone's heavy on their lead leg, it can open up to things like that. But another thing that I wanted to ask you about, one of your tougher fights, and Rick Glenn, and your first 2 rounds, you did your thing. You got takedowns, and you won those rounds rather easily. And then in round 3, I was just going to ask, because I don't really know what happened. It was a round that you had a tough round there, and it ended up being a draw, and you got stuck in bottom position. And I couldn't tell, and you can just talk about it because I couldn't tell. Were you tired, or did you get hurt in that round? Like, and sorry to bring up this memory, but like I'm sure you've reflected on it. So like what exactly happened? Was it a combination of both, or what exactly happened? I'm sorry, man. Like,
no, you're good. You're good. I want to,
because it was probably a good learning experience too, So
it was the best learning experience of my life.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what I believe in the moment, and I can tell you what I believe now.
And if you don't want to, it's no big deal.
No, you're fine.
Cool.
I'll tell you what I believe in the moment. In the moment, I was up 2 rounds. I knew I was up 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there that night. I wasn't on that night. I cannot tell you. The 3rd round is usually my best round. If you go back to the Nad Narimani fight.
And that's why I wanted to ask. Yeah. You're known for your cardio.
The 3rd round is usually my best round. I wasn't like, I was tired, but I wasn't like gasping for air by any means or anything. I had an off night, and I thought to myself, if I just don't get knocked out, I will win this fight.
Yeah.
So I shot in on, I couldn't get him down. I shot in on a single leg, and I have this move that I do. I hit it on Julian Erosa.
Yeah.
I shot in and I sit to my butt and I limp arm.
Yep.
And come up to the back, and it didn't work because his hand like fell on my ankle. And so when he grabbed my ankle, I couldn't limp my arm out, and he kept me down. And I just thought, okay, I'm just going to stay on my back to not get knocked out. There's only like 3 minutes left, something like that.
Yeah.
And by the time it had gotten to the end where I was like, man, like I know I won the first 2 rounds. Like dude, the idea of a draw didn't even pop into my head. I was just like,
you're thinking 29-28.
Yeah, just don't get finished. Just don't
Yeah.
get finished. He sunk in a choke, and I'm like, okay, he's not hitting me anymore. Thumbs up. I'm good. Timer goes off. I almost went out. I did go out a little bit. Like I'll tell you right now, if he had 10 more seconds, I would have lost the fight 100%.
Yeah.
But he didn't, and I got out, or the timer went, and they called it a draw. And so I think it was just one of those things where I had to learn a lesson that I didn't learn in my last fight. And that was that I needed to change gyms. I needed to go to a place with better guys, with better training partners, with guys that push me more, guys where I'm not the best guy in the room. Yeah. I keep track every year of how many times I get submitted. And
in the gym.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 2021, I got submitted 1 time. Really? And in 2022, I stopped keeping track after 53.
So that means at Glory, at your old gym at Glory, that means you're probably the best guy in the room. You got submitted 1 time, you probably just got caught, and then now you're with killers and you're getting sub more. But like
100%.
But yeah, like what's the quote? Iron sharpens iron. I mean, you got to go with those hard guys, you know?
Man, I'm going to tell you right now, like, and for any young fighters listening, I think this is a really good, a really good thing that you can take from this. Iron sharpens iron. I 100% agree with that. But I think even more importantly is passion fuels passion. Like the guys that, and not to say that the guys that I trained with before didn't love MMA, didn't, train hard. They trained very hard. They got after it. The guys in the room that I am in the room with now, they live it. And it almost holds me to a higher standard, because before, look, these guys like it. I like it. I'm the best guy in the room. I can take today off. Like I can. But now it's like, man, this guy's
going to get lit up a little bit. Yeah.
This guy's better than me. This guy's better than me in this position. I need to be here, and I need to learn what's going on in this position. I think that surround yourself with guys that are as passionate about what you're doing as you are, and I think you will go so far. And the thing is, too, if you surround yourself with guys that are truly as passionate about what you're doing as you are, they won't let you be in a room where you're not getting beat up. If you become the best guy in the room, they're going to want you to leave, and they're going to want to come with you, you know? And so it was just, I'm religious. I believe in God. I'm not a huge believer in everything happens for a reason, but I really think that, things that happened to me in the Leonardo Santos fight, I think God was telling me that if I wanted to be a world champion, I need to make changes. And when I knocked him out, this is going to sound so weird, man, but I swear I'm not a loon.
Dude, you're fine. You're fine.
I believe that I got that 50K, and I was meant to use that 50K to move to Florida and train at American Top Team. But I decided to stay where I was comfortable and buy a house in Missouri. And so God, fate, destiny, the universe, higher power, whatever you want to call it, said, okay, now you got to figure it out coming off of half of a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I think it was the best decision I ever made. And I think I kick myself every day for not moving here sooner.
For sure. Well, I mean, no, that's awesome. I just wanted to bring up that fight because, like, I did know you switched camps after that, so I wanted to talk about it a little bit. But after that, and I'm not just saying this, like, because it's just like I think your last 2 fights were your best performances, your best performances, and like you've had other more dominant wins. And we got about 5 minutes left. I'm sorry. And but Jared Gordon was just a tough matchup. Like Jared Gordon's very underrated, and like. He was a huge underdog against Paddy Pimblett in the fight. I thought he won, and a lot of people thought he won. And he was disrespected on like the betting line, on the public opinion, and he's a good fighter. And you ended up submitting him, and that is a tough thing to do. He's a brown belt under Danaher, and he had never been subbed before, so that was a great win for you. And then the Mark Madsen fight, and I want to ask you about this because we talked about the difference between folk style and Greco. Going into that fight, and I'm sure, just like you, being a guy who didn't win state in high school, I bet you're pretty pumped. You out wrestled an Olympian. But going into that fight, did you expect that? Like, did you know you could maybe get him in below the waist takedowns and on the mat, or is it something that kind of happened in the fight and you're like, oh, once you felt him a little bit, you had him? Like, what was your feel going in and during that fight?
Yeah, man. That was one of the hardest fight weeks of my entire life, man. I had a lot of adversity going into that fight, and I think he dropped me in the first
20 seconds.
20 seconds. Yeah. And I think that was one of the best things that could have happened to me. It really woke me up, really got me going. And I remember fitting in on his legs, and I'm in on one leg, and he kind of hit me over. And I was like, okay, screw this. I'm going to get him down as hard as I can right now, but I'm going to stay on the leg. And I kind of felt on his hips, like, if this guy's on one leg, it's a lot harder for him to do stuff than if he's on two legs. So I made that read. I got the body triangle in, and the whole round I was just thinking to myself, okay, like, get your wits back. Try to choke him if you can, but we're probably not going to choke him. But remember, next round, single leg.
Yeah.
And there's even a point there, and I have a philosophy when it comes to takedowns, and that's, if the takedown's not there, you got to prove to me it's not there. You know, if I'm not going to get it anyway, at least you're going to have to work 100% the whole time until you're the whole way away from me.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I'm literally sprawled on my stomach and I have his ankle, and I was going to be, I thought I was, okay, he's going to pull his leg out, and he didn't. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to stand up, then he'll pull his leg out. Yeah. And he didn't. I was like, all right, well, I'm in on the hip now. Might as well pull him to the ground. And it was one of those things, man, where, the whole camp, me and my coach, Mike Brown, and Pitbull and Thiago Moises, we worked on, and we only had a 2-week camp, by the way. And we worked on just in on the legs, just no body locks, just in on the legs, just in on the legs. If you're on the cage, no body locks, just in on the legs.
So you wanted to go below the waist to test his
on everything.
Everything.
Everything. I have a system that I do on the cage, and a lot of the times when I get on the cage, I like to go from legs to body lock to start tripping, lifting.
Yeah, because you do a lot of reaps and trips too.
Yep. And man, you really know your stuff, dog.
Sometimes
I enjoy this because a lot of the times when I do interviews, I'm talking to people that have no idea what they're talking. So this is actually really great for me. Anyway. So the whole idea was, even if we're on the cage, we stay on the legs. And one thing with me is I'm very good at listening to my coaches, letting my coaches come up with a game plan, and then sticking to that game plan. Obviously, we make adjustments. I'm always down to make adjustments. But if my coaches set me a game plan, I don't deter from that until told otherwise. So it worked out really well, man. And I'm very, very, very happy with that performance. And I think it opened a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, no, it was a good those two performances were, in my opinion, your two best performances. And I know the Jared Gordon fight was a little more competitive than the Matson fight, but you kind of fought through that third round, which you had a tougher time with Glenn in that third round. So I really thought that was a good one as well. And the Matson one was much more dominant, and it was cool watching the folk style versus Greco dynamic, and folk style won in that case. But those are all the fight-related questions. 2 more minutes. You're a Star Wars fan. I have to go one thing unrelated to MMA. All right. I know I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I had to ask.
You see my name there?
What's up?
You see my name?
Yeah. So give me and I'm putting you on the spot, give me your best Star Wars hot take. So maybe an opinion that's a little controversial to the other Star Wars fans, and I'll give you one, and you're probably not going to agree, but I think Revenge of the Sith is the best film, over Empire Strikes Back, over all of them in Star Wars. And I'm going to give you a few reasons why. Best lightsaber duel by a mile. Agreed?
Check.
Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then they were simultaneous.
It's the greatest duel of all time in any. Find me a sword fight. Go to anime. Find me a sword fight, a lightsaber fight. Find me some type of close quarter combat that is better than that. You can't.
For sure. And the way they were simultaneously going to Palpatine and Yoda fighting, and the soundtrack, that was just epic. And Order 66, tragic but epic.
I cried.
And the movie also, it makes you hurt. You feel it's sad, and it brings out emotions. And I do think it has its flaws, but those few things are so good that I just don't even care about the flaws. And I think it's such an underrated movie, and it's starting to get a little more love as time passes. So that's mine. And I love Rogue One as well. I think that's an underrated one. I like that one. Maybe you don't, but do you have any hot takes or just an overall opinion about it?
I have 3 controversial hot takes about Star Wars. I've been waiting to talk about this.
All right.
My number 1 is I did not like Rogue One.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was.
That is controversial, yeah.
I thought it was, other than the last 15 minutes, I thought it was really boring. I thought nothing happened. There was nothing exciting. Now, Darth Vader showing up on the ship, one of the best scenes in Star Wars. 100%. I give you that.
Agreed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't like the characters. The guy that's in Andor or whatever.
Andor,
He kills the guy, his own teammate, at the beginning of the movie.
He does.
And this is a really weird thing for me. I don't know what this is, but this is really weird for me. I hate it when villains kill their own people. I don't know why. It drives me absolutely crazy. And part of it is if you know that this guy would kill you, why are you working for him?
Right.
Another part of it is I feel like I'm so loyal to the people, my people. I'm so loyal to those. I can't imagine ever sacrificing their lives or disposing of them like that. It drives me crazy. So seeing the good guy do that, it turned me off from the movie right away.
I hadn't thought about that. That makes sense. Yeah.
I thought the main character, I couldn't get over how big the main character's teeth were. She literally looks like Bugs Bunny in human form.
Oh, God.
This isn't my second take. This is continuing off.
No, I agree. No, it's about why you don't like Rogue One. So yeah.
Well, it's not about Rogue One anymore. I think Solo was a much, much, much better standalone movie than Rogue One was. 100%. I would rather watch Solo for the next 3 years every night than watch Rogue One for half a year every night.
Fair.
It's not my second hot take. And this one, nobody will agree with me with, but I don't care because it's my own opinion. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are better than 4, 5, and 6.
Come on. No, agreed. I like that. Dude, the prequels are underrated.
What is good about Star Wars? The lightsaber fights?
Yeah.
Death?
Yeah.
And storyline.
Yeah.
The first 3 have, and I'm not knocking them. It was the times. Well, actually, I'll get into that in a second. The lightsaber fights aren't as good. The lightsaber fights are amazing. People trash on episode 1. I love episode 1. Darth Maul versus.
That's one of the best ones. Behind
100%.
episode 3. It's maybe the best one other than that.
It's 3, 1, and then 2, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn.
Incredible.
Do you remember being a kid and going into the movie theater and seeing the Sith with his lightsaber, then pull out the fact that he's got double blades?
Yeah.
What? It blew my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
It still blows my mind. And the thing that upsets me more than anything else about the sequels, so 7, 8, 9, is the story sucks. Everything sucks. I could forgive that if they had made the lightsaber fights with all the special effects, with all of the athleticism, with all of the cables and all of the technology that we have today. You had to give us lightsaber fights that are worse than 4, 5, and 6. And I'm not joking. Darth Vader versus Luke at the end was a better lightsaber fight than any of the fights in the prequels.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
In the sequels, yeah. The only good scene I liked I hated the sequels. I'm just gonna be real. I thought
everybody does.
They were unnecessary. They were dumb.
Everybody does.
The only one that I thought was kind of cool was the throne room in Last Jedi. Just a fight. I didn't like the movie or anything, but it wasn't good. And I agree. The prequels, episode 1 and episode 3 is the GOAT by far, best 100%. One. Episode 1
is Star Wars
is great too, and I loved that. So do you have any more? What's your last one?
I have one more big hot take, but I want to that throne room scene you're talking about. I want to ruin that for you in a second.
Okay.
You break down fights. Go break down that fight. There's so many like technical flaws. So, for example, the biggest one that I found was Ray is like is fighting a dude that has 2 swords, blocks 1 sword, and then they animate the other sword out of the dude's hand. So now he's only got 1 sword because it makes no sense that he didn't just hit her with his other hand. It's not even choreographed properly. And it's right. You guys have millions and millions and millions of dollars sunk into each and every scene. Yeah. This needs to be perfect. And you're trying to build off of a franchise that should have been done. I mean, I'm glad it's not, but it should have been done.
Yeah.
It needs to be perfect, 100%. Sure. And it looks like you guys didn't even try.
Agreed.
My number 3 hot take, and I don't know if anybody will agree with me on this, is the Clone Wars animated series is the best part of Star Wars, other than maybe The Mandalorian.
A lot of people, I think people like Clone Wars, and this is like real hardcore. So people who don't know, and I probably don't give a fuck about what we're talking about anymore, but like Clone Wars, Rebels, there's animated shows, and I think you get them all on Disney Plus. And Clone Wars is really good. Like,
it's amazing.
I really enjoyed it, and it's also just cool because it's spanning all these other live action shows like Ahsoka, and
it's tied into everything.
Yeah, and like the last, and I don't want to spoil it to anyone, but it ties into what happened in episode 3, like the last episode. Yeah, like 100%. So I loved it, man. Like, I agree. I honestly agree with those hot takes. Like, they all make. And I can tell you are a hardcore Star Wars fan because I consider myself hardcore, and you're probably above me. So, but I agree with those. Revenge of the Sith, though, I think is underrated. It's incredible. But yeah, man, so that's that. But Grant, we just went over an hour. I only wanted 20 minutes, so I can't thank you enough, man. And this was so much fun. I really enjoyed talking to you. And where can people find you? Like, you have an Instagram. What is that? Do you have anything else like people can follow you on?
Yeah, man. If you want to get a hold of me, reach out to me on Instagram. I try to reply to as many people as I can. Obviously, I can't reply to everybody, but I really try to reply to as many people as I can. Yeah. That's the best way to like get in contact with me, kind of see what's going on. Everything that's on my Facebook is just there because I put it on Instagram and it translates over. Gotcha. I'm on TikTok. I'm trying to build my TikTok, but it's so hard making a video like all the time. Like, and I'm so tired all the time. I'm going to start posting more on my TikTok. So follow me on that too. Don't follow me on Twitter. Screw Twitter. Actually, now that Elon Musk bought Twitter, I'm down for it again, but I just think everybody on Twitter is an asshole. So that's the one I'm on the least. If you're trying to get a hold of me and you get a hold and you reach out to me on Twitter, I ain't responding, even if I see it.
Yeah. Well, you're quick on Instagram, and that's how I got a hold of you for this. So, man, dude, thank you so much. And like, I know I believe you're married now, so go spend some time with your awesome. Go spend some time with your wife. Enjoy your Friday, and thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I had a lot of fun. So if you want me back on, just shoot me a message. I'm down.
For sure. I'll definitely maybe in like the future, I'll reach out again and we can have a follow-up. And I love this, man. This was way better than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to screw something up. So thank you so much.
No, man. It was really good, man. It was great. I love being on it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Grant. Have a good one, bud.
You too, bud.